Now let's try some exercises. If you have the worksheets, these exercises will correspond to the ones on your worksheet. Let's take a look at these semitones and decide, are they chromatic or diatonic? So remember that chromatic means that you're using the same letter name, and diatonic means you're using a different letter name. Let's look at the first example, and what we see are the same notes, so that must be a chromatic semitone. The second example has different notes, so that must be a diatonic semitone. The third example has the same note, so that must be a chromatic semitone. And this last example has different notes, so that must be a diatonic semitone. Next, let's try writing some chromatic semitones. And we'll use the bass clef this time. And our first example is an A flat. So it's good to label that so you remember what note you're working on. And let's see if we can write a semitone above A flat. So since we know that we're going to write a chromatic semitone, right away we can just write the same note again, even though we don't know what the answer is yet. Next, we're going to look back on our keyboard and find an A flat, which is here, and look at what the note is above it, and that's an A. And since we want a chromatic semitone, that becomes our answer. So it's just plain A natural. Since we have a flat in front of this A, we need to cancel it with a natural sign in front of this A. And that's our answer. Now let's try an example that's below. So we'll start with B. And we want a semitone below B. We know it's chromatic, so right away we can just write another B. And we have to decide what kind of B we want for a semitone below it. So let's again look at our keyboard. Find the B. Find the key below it. Now we get to choose between A sharp and B flat, and we're doing a chromatic semitone, so we're going to use the B flat. And that's our answer. Now let's try some diatonic semitones. And we're going to use the treble clef again. And this time we're going to start on the note B. Now since we want, and we're going to write a semitone above B. So since we know that it's diatonic, we already know we're going to use a different letter name, we can just draw the note above it, even though we don't know what the answer is yet. Now we'll go back to the keyboard and find a B, which is right here, and the key above it is this one here. So we have to choose between the C and the B sharp. And since we want a diatonic answer, the answer is going to be C natural. Now note that we don't have to put a natural sign in front of the C like we did last time, because we don't have anything that we need to cancel. So a C is fine. Let's try another example, and this time we're going to go below. So this is a G flat, and we want to find a diatonic semitone below it. Right away we know we can draw the note below it because we know it's diatonic. And let's look on our keyboard and find out if we need to put an accidental in front of it. So let's find the G flat, which is here, and we want the note below, which is F or E sharp. And since we're doing a diatonic semitone, our answer is going to be F. And again, we don't need to put a natural sign in front of it because there's nothing that we need to cancel before it. Now let's try some enharmonic notes. So what are enharmonic notes again? They're two different names for the same note. So what is the enharmonic note for F sharp? Let's look at our keyboard, find an F sharp, and we see that G flat is the same note as F sharp. So that's our answer. What about the note D flat? Let's take a look. D flat is the same note as C sharp. So I think that's pretty straightforward. Now let's look at the white keys of the piano. Which ones are whole tones? So if we take a look, we can see that C to D is a whole tone because it takes two steps. We also see that D to E is a whole tone because it takes two steps. E to F, however, is only one step, so that's a semitone, so that's not the right answer. And so on and so on. So you can finish those questions. Also, what are the whole tones between black keys? So if we go from this black key to this black key, that's a whole tone. So C sharp to D sharp is a whole tone, or you could say D flat to E flat is a whole tone. However, E flat to G flat is not a whole tone because that takes three steps to get there. So you can use that method to find all the whole tones between black keys of the piano. Now let's try writing some whole tones. And we'll do it in the bass clef this time. So let's start with the note C sharp. And we're going to write a whole tone above C sharp. Now right away, again, if you don't know the answer, you can still write in the next note, which is above the C sharp, and that's a D. Now we have to check to see if we need an accidental in front of it. So let's find C sharp, and we'll go two semitones over and find D sharp or E flat. So since we want to go to the next letter name, we don't want to skip letter names from C to E. We're going to use the D sharp as our answer. Now let's try one below D flat. And again, we know we're going to go below. We know it's a whole tone, so right away we can draw in the C. And now we have to check upstairs to see what kind of C we have. So our D flat is here, but it's also here. We need to go two semitones, so we're going to start from here and go down two semitones. And we find ourselves on the B. Now we don't want to go from D to B because alphabetically that doesn't follow. So we want to go from D to C flat. And that's our answer. Put a flat in front of the C, and there you go. So that's our introduction to accidentals. I hope that was helpful. And until next time, I hope you enjoy doing the rest of the exercises on your worksheet.